Today was meant to be about the shells, but the weather got in the way. So I'm going to show you the planning I'm doing for my first layout and some of the steps I go through. If you're new here, don't forget to click the subscribe button and you can follow along with the progress of this project. It's been about 8 months since the last video and I thought it'd be good to have a bit of a refresher. So now down to the planning process. So when I start planning, it usually is a kind of like a doodling process, and it can be pretty much anything. It's just really just to get the idea down. So I start off with a very basic idea and map out the kind of the basics. I'll probably give myself the rough sizes that I've got for the baseboard, and in this case I think it's about 3 foot by 1 foot. And then I start adding in the detail. So on this, my first layout, basically there's going to be the back scene with the low relief buildings and a retaining wall, which we'll just quickly add in. And then I stick in the track plan, which is going to be very simple because it's only 1 point. And then any other kind of buildings, which I tend to mark out like so. And then I might add a bit more detail, so like if I'm filling this all in, then I'll leave that like that, and then put in the track feed position probably, and then maybe make some notes. So yard, concrete maybe, made of foam board, just to give me a reminder when I come back to it, if it's something I think I'm going to build at some point, etc, etc. And then that really gives me the basic idea. Then I tend to kind of do something on a bit bigger scale. I've pretty much doodled all my life with these things, and so the next big step up probably would be the back of an envelope, my favourite. And again, we'll draw the basic baseboard size, whatever. So I give myself an idea of the actual space, and then again rough in the kind of idea. So we've got the back scene, we've got the retaining wall, which holds up the shop fronts, etc, at the back there, and then we stick in the track plan. Now, having kind of thought about this, and the shells actually kind of are now more orientated for the track to be kind of, well, at least the fiddle yard end of it to be at the right hand side. I've decided to switch it around, so we'll go for the basic inglenook setting again, which is all I'm going to be doing, and also the track feed. Marking out the ends of the lines, and then put in the building, the goods shed. Again, this is all very much kind of not to scale, because obviously there's probably a lot less space on the front side here and probably more space needed at the back, but just to give me an idea. And again, I'll probably shade in if it's going to be covered, to give me an idea. Maybe put down some notes again about what I'm going to do. And then also what I tend to do is I might even do a kind of like a 3D kind of interpretation of it, just to give me a bit of an idea. So you have to excuse my drawing skills, they're not the best. So roughly, and I think this is probably going to be way too big, so we stick in the baseboard. I'll probably put a note in about what I'm going to use, and potentially also just try and demarcate the bottom of it, and then stick in the back scene with the raised section for the buildings that are going to sit at the back here, low relief buildings. and I won't go into too much detail, but get the idea. And then the retaining wall, and then obviously the goods shed. So that will be something like this. And as you can see already, the diagram obviously shows a lot more spaces required at the back than it is at the front. And once we put the track plan in the base, excuse me, with the basic ingle nook, probably stick a crossing or something in there, and again we'll sort of basically imply that this is going to be covered, but that just gives me a rough idea of how I want to lay it out. I might even put in a possibly a lighting pole, but that's the basic kind of setup. I don't know how many I've got of these, but it probably used to run into probably hundreds, but I managed to kind of dwindle down a load. And with modern technology now, you basically take pictures of everything, and that way you've got a record of it and not have to carry around huge, great kind of wads of paper. So again, I might do it on a pad. It just depends. I like kind of having a bit more space to draw things, because obviously as the ideas flow, you can then map more things out and write down details of stuff that you might want to use. So, you know, if you have the basic kind of plan and then maybe a 3D representation, you can have some notes kind of underneath. Then you could have the idea of the kind of maybe the products that you need, probably a bit of a shopping list maybe, and then maybe some links to anything that you found. I know that all this can be done online and in digital format, but I really enjoyed kind of part of the doodling side of it, so I get just as much enjoyment out of this as I do out of kind of any other part of it. Anyway, you can do whatever you like, but that gives you the basic idea, and then obviously it's all in one place. Moving on from there, I then move on to doing a computer representation or plan of it, and for quite some time now I've been using templot. I use templot in a number of different ways, and I don't always use it in probably the way that it's kind of meant to be used, but I do use it for mapping out spaces, possibly with no intention of building the track for it, because I'm going to use kind of ready-made track, either Pico or whatever, but it certainly helps me get an idea of the space. So let's move on to the computer side of things. So now I'm opening up templot on my computer. I'm running this in a virtual machine as I don't have access to Windows, and it's running on Mac. I'm using a program called VirtualBox. So the first thing we get is a standard template with a point, and I can then move it around to wherever I want. And as you can see along the bottom, there's a ruler line. I can see I've got about 900 millimeters for the layout, so I can then move the template down by shifting it to where I want it to go. And I'm lining it up roughly with the space where I think it's going to land, giving me a little bit of runoff towards the edge of the baseboard to the fiddle yard. And now I'm setting it. You get this the first time you run the program. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but just to give you an idea of the kind of process I go through. So now moving the standard template along and converting it to a plain piece of track, and then extending the length out to what I feel is kind of around about the length that I want, and again setting this in place. Now that I've got the straight piece of track, I can then move that around and add it to the second section of the ingle nook, and again change the length for what I feel is kind of going to be what I need, and also put a curve in it. So now I'm going to group everything together and pull it towards the front of the layout, as I know I'm going to have limited space behind for all the buildings. I'm just going to hide the label names and the control template. So now I've got the basic track plan, I'm going to create a PDF and then print it out on the printer. So now I'm opening up the PDF, and as you can see there's a list of pages down the left hand side, and I'm just getting ready to print it out using the standard print dialog from the Mac. Now why couldn't they do it page up instead of page down? I've now got the templates, and again this is not to scale at all, but it gives me a rough idea of where I want to be with things. So if I can wiggle things around a bit, I can get a rough idea. And then once I've got that set up, I can work out roughly the distance, and I can see, how much space I've got. So if I'm to take from the end of there, that's around about 3 feet, so that's good. And then depending on how much width I've got, which I think on this case I've got around about 14 inches, that should be kind of adequate to get the layout sort of track in the front side of the layout and the scenery at the back, but only time will tell. And so now the final part of it all is to see basically the baseboards from the foam board, how much space we've actually got. Try and remember where all these pieces go. It's a while since I've looked at this. So the main one I think I'm going to need is probably the bottom one, as is always the case. Try and stick with that. Yep. Okay. Right. So we've got approximately, there we go, 30 inches. So it's not actually 3 foot. So I can go back and rearrange the plan to fit that space. But just for the time being, we'll see if we can sort of mimic it, so I have an idea of roughly how much space I've got to play with on the scenic side of things. I'm pretty sure the track is going to come as far forward as possible. I think I can probably mess around with this to allow me a bit more space, and I think as well these points are not necessarily the shortest ones I can make, and given that it's an urban site, probably the radiuses would have been kind of a bit tighter than what I've got already. But yeah, so that basically is my plan for my first layout, which is going to be made out of foam board. And the final part of the plan is that this is a download from Pico for their Code 100 short radius. That's the shortest one I think you can get at the moment, at least anyway. So I'm just going to roughly mock it up, and just to give an idea of basically the size that has come off templot as compared to the Pico point. So this is 185 millimeters long, and if we do it roughly from the same place, so we do have quite a bit more to play with if we want. So that's it for this week. Next week will definitely be the shells finished, and there's a playlist here if you'd like to follow along with the layout build, and I'll see you in the next one.